Most reasonable crash outs in anime and manga. Video by Pavelover.
What do you say, son? Go out there and win this one for me, okay?
Yeah, Cell was whooping they asses, boy.
Okay, Dad.
Well, the Super Saiyan 2 crash out. Yup. Ooh, that was smooth. The little stretch into the full screen. Y'all ain't peep the editing right there.
Screaming into the sky, the eyes that go blank right before someone does something they can never take back. Anime characters lose their minds a lot, but when you stop to think about what actually happened to them, not what they did once they snapped, but everything before that, you realize that every breakdown raises the same question. Was it justified?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say this much. A lot of a lot of these snap moments don't be justified, bruh. A lot of anime rage moments be a little dramatic, you know. They're kind of doing the most, and it kind of causes the quote-unquote rage moment to be like oversaturated. But when a rage moment really hits, because the thing is, I feel like you should only really have 1 or 2 true rage moments per series, or like per major character. You know what I mean? If it's like a Dragon Ball where we're raging every other arc and we're tweaking and surpassing our limits off pure rage every other arc, it starts to lose its luster. What really leads to, you know, a good rage moment in my book, and what I think we're going to be using to largely judge and, you know, scale, quote unquote, these rage moments with this, you know, this tier list right here. What makes a good rage moment to me, at least in part, has to be, you know, how common we see it, and, you know, if it really stands out amongst other rage moments.
Sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes it's maybe. But what happens when losing their mind is the only response that makes sense? What happens when a character is pushed?
Nah, Gaara was one of the first, Gaara was one of the first characters that I fell in love with. Like, as a kid, Gaara was probably the first anime character I really, really, really started to fuck with. This was like before I even really knew what anime was, before I even really knew what Naruto was like that. I had read a little bit of the manga and seen Gaara's backstory and everything from his design to his powers to, I mean, like, there was a point in time where Gaara, that was my nigga, bruh. And so, yeah, I'm always going to have a soft spot for Gaara. I think Gaara embodies everything that was great about early Naruto. Now, you know, by that same vein, the direction his character went in could arguably embody everything that was not so great about late Naruto. You know, it became got that little, what's it called, haircut. But I'm glad he was able to live a happy life at the very least.
So far beyond anything anyone should ever have to endure. What happens when the crash out is undoubtedly, undeniably, unmistakably
justified, reasonable? That boy thought he was going to predict. Written by Pavelover, Crash Out, anime and manga. It's crazy the proliferation of the word crash out in like the past, let's say 2 or 3 years. You know, I as someone who had heard the word thrown around just like amongst black people for damn near my whole life, it's crazy to see how quote unquote mainstream that word has become.
Today, I want to show you what I personally believe are...
The fuck is that in his hand? Yo, why is that Broly figure so fucking vascular, bro? Oh, hell nah. That figure. I mean, it's a nice figure, but golly.
The most valid crash outs in anime and manga history, starting with characters who crashed out after losing someone precious to them.
Okay. Okay, we're starting with Gon, and I'm assuming his crash out over his crash out towards Pito over Kite.
Gon is the protagonist of Hunter x Hunter. He is a small boy from a small island who sets out to become...
Who wears some small fucking shorts. Yo, that shit pissed me off the whole series. How do you... No, let's talk about it, Gon. How do your boots have more skin coverage length than your pants? Gon, what's going on?
A hunter. Basically...
Y'all not hunters, okay? Y'all don't really know what that is. Y'all don't got a hunter license like me and Gon, but that's okay.
A licensed professional who travels the world and takes on jobs ranging from treasure hunting to tracking mysterious creatures to things
I've never really seen Hunter x Hunter 99.
One of the greatest hunters of all time. Kite is a hunter who trained directly under Jing and also the key to understanding Gon's Crashout.
Yeah.
The reason Gon became a hunter in the first place is to find his father. And Kite is one of the first people Gon meets who has a real connection to him. But on top of that, he is also kind of everything Gon aspires to become.
Apparently, the main critique that people who have seen both Hunter x Hunter 99 and Hunter x Hunter 2011, apparently the main critique that people leverage against Hunter x Hunter 2011 is that they didn't do enough build up for... Why can't I think of his name? It was just said. I keep wanting to say Pito. Kite. Apparently, Kite was built up way more in the manga and the 99 manga, and sorry, the 99 anime, such that, you know what I mean, you kind of got a more of a feel for him, and you kind of understood more of why Gon crashed out for him than what you saw in the 2011 anime. Because in the 2011 anime, I'm not going to say it came out of nowhere, but you know what I mean? Gon was moving like he really knew Kite, bruh. Like that was his man's. And we just didn't see that development of the relationship in the 2011 anime.
Most of the story, they actually journey in separate directions until they are eventually brought back together much, much later. Their job is to investigate this mysterious island full of creatures called Chimera ants.
Yep.
Kite, Gon, and Gon's best friend 𝙏𝙖𝙡 encounter one of these creatures.
Yo. Pito, this scene right here, bruh. This scene right here, when Pito first encountered them from across that like big ass cliff opening, and they zoomed in on the faces wild close, and Kite was just like, yo, run. That shit was too cold, bro. I love Hunter x Hunter because it has those moments that really get your heart pounding.
And unfortunately for them, the encounter lasts seconds. Pito is so far beyond what any of them are capable of handling that it is not a fair fight.
Immediately
Kite,
loses that arm, right?
Immediately, sacrifices himself to give the boys the chance to escape. His arm is severed instantly. Gon tries to fight back, but 𝙏𝙧 knocks...
Oh yeah, that nigga Gon was ready to get to it right then and there. Mind you, he was ready to crash just over Kite losing an arm. So low-key, what he ended up doing to Pito was foreshadowed on the sly.
...him out so they can leave. And when he wakes up, he isn't angry. Instead, he is convinced Kite is still alive and decides to save him.
He's coping.
On the surface, he seems confident, but deep down, he knows.
You think they could have taken Pito 3v1? Absolutely not. Hell no. The whole reason they had to run is because Kite knew that shit was cooked.
Kite lost his arm protecting him. Had Gon been stronger, Kite may still be there. To everyone around him, the situation is obvious. Kite is
cooked. It's cooked. And to kind of tie this into like a modern anime equivalent that I'm seeing, I almost feel like we're getting this same sort of cope from Coco and Witch Hat Atelier. We're all like, yeah, that woman, she's probably dead. But Coco is still holding on to this hope. And so that, you know, with the precedent of characters like Gon reacting the way they did in this situation, that's why I'm like worried for Coco. Because I'm like, yo, how is this going to play out, bruh? You know?
Consumed by this guilt, Gon convinces himself that if he becomes strong enough, he can fix what happened. And everything he does from that point forward, including the battles, is to bring Kite back. As the arc continues, several hunters invade the palace where the ants live.
Because she turned that nigga Kite to like a creature, right? Like he was fucked all the way up.
And focuses on one person, Pito. After all this waiting, he finally stands face to face with the person responsible for everything. Yet, instead of attacking immediately, he hesitates.
Yeah,
Pito is busy healing an innocent girl and asks for a bit of time. In exchange, she promises to heal Kite as well. Gon agrees and waits while not closing his eyes or averting his gaze for a...
The classic pose. I'm not gonna lie. I low-key think he hit this pose for a farm, bro. Because if you try hitting this pose in real life, it's low-key wild uncomfortable. So like low-key he was trying to farm. I think he knew the cameras were on him.
Single second. Once it's done, they both leave, and Pito finally tells him the truth. Kite cannot be healed.
Just lied to his ass. Yep, you know, rage moment symbol number 1, light leaving the eyes, okay? If you're going against the anime character and you see that highlight leave their eyes, you see the animator say, oh, that's a little bit less that we don't want to animate right now. That's sign number 1. You need to get your ass up out of there, bro. But again, I feel like at least the 2011 anime could have built this up a little better simply by building up Kite a little better. You know what I mean? I didn't care enough about Kite to really feel for Gon in this moment.
There is nothing left to heal. He died long ago during the fight. For months, Gon pushed down the guilt of being
Fighting
too
for
weak,
nothing.
the anger toward Pito, and the grief of losing someone he admired.
Rage
The second
cataracts.
Pito confirms the truth, everything collapses, and that is when Gon crashes out.
Sacrifices all that shit, boy. When you think about what he actually put on the line and for what, it's kind of crazy. Gave his whole potential, not even his whole life. He gave his whole potential throughout life away in a moment for one fade, for one squabble. The craziest part is too, and this is just Togashi being a goat, but it's so anti-shonen to have this be the peak of your character's arc. You know what I mean? At this point in the story, we're over 3/4 of the way through, right? We're probably about 80%. Well, you know, if we're looking at what's animated, because obviously, you know, the jury is out on if we'll ever get more animated Hunter x Hunter again, right? But at this point in the story, we're like 80% of the way through the show, okay? At this point in most shonen anime would be when your character is like, you know, hitting their peak. You know what I mean? Like finally starting to overcome, like really doing their thing. But Togashi said, nah, I'm gonna use the peak of my character's development, of my shonen MC's development that you've been following for season after season, episode after episode after episode, hundreds of episodes at this point. I'm gonna have the peak of this, you know, cheery, goofy little character's development be him just absolutely losing it and sacrificing it all for a single fade. Shout out Togashi, man. Such a goat. Like this is damn near the last we see of Gon. Like that, now that is the last combat-oriented thing we see from Gon, is him giving it all up for a fade. That's kind of tough. It's different, but it's tough.
Sometimes a character crashes out.
And it's a I think what impresses me the most is because it's something that wasn't needed. You know what I mean? He's not saving anybody by killing Pito. You know, arguably cascading effect, he took out one of the ants. They would have had a harder time doing that without him, sure. But at this point, Meruem is like already poisoned. Netero did his thing. You know what I mean? At this point, the world is kind of, if I'm remembering correctly, I could be mixing the timeline up. But at this point, like, you know, the tides have turned and it's looking like humanity is going to take the W over the ants. At this point, you know, Gon is not really saving no shit. Gon is not doing this to save nobody. He's not doing this out of any, like, you know, heroism. It's kind of pointless. It really is. It's just straight crash. It's plain crash. Nothing but anger and ignorance fueling his actions here. And I think that's a cool and ambitious place to basically leave your character.
After losing not one, but several of the people that counted to them the most.
Okay, are we going to another character? Okay, yeah. I think we're switching to JJK. Let's start by seeing what we're going to do with Gon, okay? Here's what I'm going to say for Gon, all right? And all of these are subject to move at any given time. I'm going to put Gon in, like, high B tier just because we don't know what else is going to come, right? And here's why I'm going to say high B tier, okay? First of all, I think we have to talk about that this was not built up well. Like, it was built up well from Kite's death moving on, but it wasn't built up from a Kite perspective. Me as a viewer, I don't give a fuck about Kite. We knew him for like 7 episodes or something. He was cool, but that's kind of all he was at that point. He was cool, you know, and he had a cool nin ability that we never got to see. That shit still pisses me off. I would have wanted to see a good spin. And I don't think this is a Togashi thing. Apparently, you know, Kite was built up a bit better in the manga, or like the 90s anime, and the 2011 anime cut some content and kind of dropped the ball. And so, like, you know what I mean? I was thinking like C, just because it wasn't built up the best, but because of, you know, I like the ambitiousness of it, and I think it was executed well. You know, from an anime perspective, again, because I've only seen the 2011 anime. I've never read the manga or watched 99. I'm going to go B. This is subject to go up or down based on what else is talked about. Another thing that I think, you know what I mean? If we're making this is a crash out tier list, but it's a justified crash out tier list. I don't know if it's entirely justified. And I say that because, you know, one, Kite knew what he was doing. You know, all three of them knew what they were getting into, and Kite knew he was sacrificing himself. So that is what Kite wanted, right? 2, you know, Gon blamed himself for what happened to Kite, but nothing happened directly to Gon, compared to, like, you know, I'm sure some of these other crash outs will be about characters who have something done upon them, which, you know, I would probably scale that a little higher. And then 3, again, we talked about the futility of it all. The fact that in the grand scheme of things, this crash out achieved nothing. And so it was, you know, just in terms of being a crash out, maybe it was the purest crash on this list. But just with everything in mind, I think I'm going to put it in like upper B for now, just so that we have a good baseline to figure out how we're going to be rating things moving forward. So let's see. I think we're moving into JJK next. Loss of love. Okay, right. We're doing loss of love characters still.
Jujutsu Kaisen is
so Yuji crashed because he lost Nobara, and Junpei, Nobara, and Nanami, back to back.
set in a world where negative human emotions manifest as physical creatures called curses. These curses range from, you know, small monsters to
oh shit, ain't that the one that they said took out Megami and Modulo? Is that canon?
catastrophic threats depending on how much people are afraid of them. And a small group of people called sorcerers are responsible for getting rid of these curses. Yuji Itadori is one of these sorcerers. He is a genuinely kind person, but also the vessel of Ryomen Sukuna, the most powerful and malevolent being in existence. The thing that makes Yuji unique is
what the fuck is that? What is this? I don't remember this scene.
that he lives in a world full of sorcerers who have learned to control their emotions.
Okay,
and
Miwa. What the fuck? I just peeped. Is this nigga dressed up as Jogo? Hold on. Yo! Hold on. That nigga knows something that we don't know. How the fuck did he know about Jogo? It's time we start asking some serious questions about these JJK background characters. Because why does he perfectly have on Jogo's fit? Is that not insane to anyone else?
loss as a part of the job. But Yuji never developed that distance. He is a normal boy who wants to do the right thing, who feels the tragedy of everything around him very deeply, but keeps walking anyway. And Mahito, one of the main villains of his—
Man, I'ma always be like, I'm not mad about how Mahito went out, right? But here's what I'm gonna say. I know a little bit about, like, basically Kenjaku and Sukuna are like the big two, right? The final main villains. You know, I'm not mad at that per se. You know, I still don't know entirely how it plays out. And so I'm willing to give it a chance. But personally, I would have wanted to have a Mahito and Sukuna. You know, I think there was more to do with Mahito. Mahito's ability was just so existentially terrifying to me that I wish we would have seen more of it. I'm more scared of Mahito than I am of Kenjaku, even if Kenjaku is technically a bigger threat.
Story understands this completely. Mahito is a curse born from human hatred of other humans, where Yuji believes every life has value.
That nigga used to look so much happier back in the day. He was posing doing goofy shit like this. I forgot this used to be a school life show on the low.
Mahito sees people as toys, and that is exactly why he spends the entire story targeting Yuji. His first real attack comes through...
Oh yeah, Junpei. True story. One time I was talking to this girl back when this was airing, so like 2020, freshman year of high school. And I had read a little bit of the manga at this point. Like I was a manga reader up until Shibuya. Then I was like, I'm gonna wait for the anime. And I basically accidentally spoiled that Junpei died. And she just never spoke to me again. So, you know, I think about that every time I see Junpei. I'm still mad, not because of how things turned out, but I do feel bad for spoiling that shit. Because the show really went out of their way to make you think Junpei was gonna be like on the team. You know what I'm saying? And I still think I love jellyfish, like as a concept. Okay, jellyfish are so cool to me. When they revealed Junpei had a jellyfish technique, I was like, oh shit, I like this guy. Like I relate to Junpei. We actually have the same Myers-Briggs. And then he was just like, he just wasn't. It's because he had this fuck ass haircut, bro. That shit had to go.
Junpei, a lonely teenager. Yuji and Junpei form a friendship, but behind the scenes, Mahito finds him and begins manipulating him. When they're all together, Mahito deliberately transforms Junpei.
Yeah, and Mahito did this shit for the love of the game, bro, because he could have transformed Junpei at any given moment, but he just decided to train him up and get like real evil with this
into
shit.
A curse directly.
Like, why even unlock his curse technique if you just finna turn him into this hippopotamus creature?
In front of Yuji, enjoying every second of it. Junpei dies, and Yuji is left holding the weight of a friendship that he couldn't save. Despite that, he keeps going until the Shibuya incident arrives.
Yeah, this is when shit got wicked.
Shibuya is a large-scale attack on Tokyo, orchestrated by the series' antagonists, including Mahito. The city descends into chaos. Sorcerers are called to defend civilians. And then, Sukuna, the curse living inside Yuji's body, takes control.
Do we remember, why did Yuji, I don't remember why Yuji let Sukuna take control. Was it an intentional thing? I don't remember the exact reason. I know he had a finger eaten or something. I don't remember though.
And destroys the city just for his pure pleasure of fighting, slaying most of the innocents there in the process.
Yeah, this shit was crazy, bro. I'm not gonna lie. We got to scale this Samsung phone, because how is the hand being shredded into nothing, but the phone is surviving unscathed?
Yuji regains consciousness surrounded by destruction, knowing all of this happened through his hands. He was not controlling what happened, but those people were slain because he exists. A few moments later.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously we know Yuji's whole thing. He blames himself. That's his take on the situation. Me personally, I never blame Yuji for that shit. You know what I mean? Arguably, his existence is the only thing that stops some shit like that from happening sooner. But we know how Yuji took that on his soul, bro. We just went through it with like the Higuruma shit. He's still working through that to this day. Maybe that's a weight he's going to carry for the rest of his life. Probably is.
While he is still processing what happened, he finds Nanami, a senior sorcerer, his mentor, and someone who has treated him with genuine care throughout the series.
Yeah.
When Yuji finally reaches him, Nanami is already at his limit, and Mahito is standing behind him.
I'm not gonna lie, Mahito was a good fucking hater, bro. Like, he was really theatrical with the shit. Look at him back here just posing.
Yuji listens to Nanami's final words as Mahito destroys his body in front of his eyes. He barely has time to process what happened before Mahito moves again, this time toward Nobara, one of Yuji's closest friends. She is attacked and most likely
smack the shit out of her.
Gone as well. All of that in a single day. Mahito savors every moment, mocking him and letting him
there was something else, wasn't there? Or am I... No, I'm tweaking.
sit inside his own despair. For the first time in the series, Yuji, the boy who always found a reason to keep moving forward, loses the will to take another step, gives up, and crashes out.
The
I'll
GOAT.
accept it, Mahito.
Oh, I thought we was gonna have a little Toto glaze. I guess not. But
I am you. I really wanted to reject you. I wanted to pretend I didn't understand what you said. He
was whooping that nigga ass.
I'll just kill you. And if you're ever reborn again as a new curse,
I'll kill you again. Yeah, he was talking
There
that
are other
shit.
times when a character...
Okay. Let's see. Here's what I'm gonna say for Yuji. I don't think, in my opinion, Yuji never really crashed. Okay? Like, hold on. I'm trying to copy paste this, but it's not working. Whatever, I'll just make some new text. Yuji never really crashed, in my opinion. He definitely screamed. I remember the time when he was scraping his fingers on the ground and whatever. And, I wouldn't consider that a crash. He definitely broke down. I don't really think Yuji crashed, though. Like, yeah, he crashed a little bit for Junpei. But if we're talking overall, Yuji's method of cope was just like lock in. It was damn near the opposite of crashing. Crashing would have been if he was like, man, fuck it, bro. I'm going to fight Mahito right now. I don't give a damn if I die. Nah, he really like locked in and started doing his role better. You know what I mean? And so he did crash about Junpei, so I'll move him up to like D. But I'm gonna have to put him pretty low on the tier list, not because, I don't like the way he reacted, not because I don't like the way his story was told or is being told, but I just feel like he didn't really crash, right? He kind of, first he crashed a little bit for Junpei, then he gave up, and then he kind of just locked in and started moving forward. And so like compared to a Gon who gave everything up, like in the moment, I think Yuji handled his situation a lot more maturely and pragmatically, and he handled it in a way that personally I wouldn't even consider a crash out. So that's why I'm putting Yuji in D tier for the justified crash out randomized tier list.
Character crashes out not after losing one or even a couple of their friends, but every single person they loved.
Okay.
It's just my nature. I'd rather fight with my
Who's
sword than
this?
run
Okay. We might be looking at an S tier. We might be looking at an S tier.
away, that's all.
So that's the only reason? You fought 100 men because it's not in your nature to run away.
I love the editing on this.
Berserk is set in a medieval world, which is probably the darkest, most vile world in the history of manga. I'm not gonna lie. And Guts is born
It's up
into
there.
the
It's up there for sure.
absolute bottom of that world. Before I go any further, you need to know that Guts is one of the darkest characters in fiction. In fact, by most standards, he is pretty much the opposite of a hero.
I think maybe his buildup is. Personally, when I read Guts and obviously, R.I.P. Miura, we will never be able to get to see the full scope of the vision for this character. But personally, I feel like he's one of the, given the direction his story seems to be going, since I guess it's still being published. When is the next Berserk chapter coming out? But given the direction that story is going, I find his story to be like actually rather hopeful and optimistic. Like, yes, he has been in some of the darkest depths of pain and suffering that you'll find in fiction, but like the broader arc of his character, it's almost like an opposite of what we were saying for Gon, right? Where like Gon is this character that started off like all happy and cheerful and optimistic, and his character ended as, him, just being willing to give everything up for everything. I'm not saying Guts himself is optimistic, but I'm saying the story and the overall message of the narrative, that like keep moving forward narrative, and the fact that, you know, last I saw him, he was calm. He was calm, or he just seemed more contemplative. Again, we'll never see the full vision of what his character was going to be. But the direction I saw the story going in was one that had a message of perseverance, as opposed to a message of like, you know, giving into your pain, compared to like what we saw with Gon and them. I don't know. That's just my take on his character, though.
He never knew his parents and is raised among mercenaries. He is forced to fight from the moment he is old enough to hold a sword. By the time he's an adult, he has spent his entire life living like a complete animal. But there's one specific moment that really changes everything. And that moment begins
The eclipse.
when he joins the band of the Hawk.
We're getting the full
Hawks
story.
are a mercenary company led by a man called Griffith, a charismatic leader who has an almost supernatural ability to inspire loyalty in the people around him. Under Griffith's leadership, the Hawks rise to become one of the most celebrated groups in the kingdom. For Guts, joining them is the first time.
I'm not gonna lie, this shit must have been crazy to witness in real time, because like now most people are going to go into this story kind of knowing, like, you know, most people even people who haven't engaged with Berserk know about Griffith, right? They know he's a villain. They know there's plenty of dialogues about him and what he did and blah, 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 right? But, you know, at the time, I'd imagine that wasn't as obvious as it is now. You know what I'm saying? And so I try to imagine what this series must have been like for people going into it back in like the 80s and 90s and whatever. And then to see that Griffith moment, the eclipse, in real time. You know what I mean? I think the same thing it's like in a couple years, there won't be a single One Piece fan on the planet who doesn't know what the One Piece was, right? And we live in a unique time of being a One Piece fan where these mysteries get to be mysteries. And I just feel like, you know, Berserk is probably the same way, where it's like, it was probably a whole different experience witnessing this in real time as opposed to, you know, looking at it in hindsight.
And in his life that he belongs to something. He has companions, people who fight beside him, and most importantly, friends who love him. One day, after a long journey, Guts realizes he has spent years living for Griffith's ambition, rather than for himself. Determined to find his own path, he decides to leave the Hawks. Griffith is broken, shattered. The one person he treated as an equal is gone, and the consequences are catastrophic. Destabilized in a way he just cannot manage, Griffith makes a reckless decision that results in his arrest. He is imprisoned and subjected to the worst treatment imaginable. By the time the Hawks finally locate and rescue him, the man they find is barely recognizable. His body is permanently destroyed. Guts returns to find him in the...
Like, imagine seeing this development in real time. You know what I mean? Like, this is probably nowhere near where niggas expected this story to go back in the day. And yet here we are.
State. The Hawks are back together. And for a brief moment, it seems like perhaps the worst is behind them. Until the eclipse begins. Without warning, the members of the Band of the Hawk are pulled into another dimension. A realm that operates by entirely different rules.
Niggas literally went to hell, bruh.
Far beyond human comprehension. What follows is the closest thing imaginable to hell. Everyone Guts has ever cared about is slain by...
Yeah, the way Miura was able to illustrate this shit, and I've never seen it in the manga. Actually, yes, I have. That was a lie. I've seen it in the manga before I've seen it in the anime. But the way he was able to illustrate this hell, you know what I mean? It makes me wonder, like, yo, this nigga was really different in the brain, bro.
Horrifying demons in front of him, while he fights desperately and accomplishes nothing. He screams until his voice gives out. He breaks his own arm trying to help, and through a miracle, he manages to escape, having lost everything. All of this caused by one man, and one man only. The person who decided to sacrifice everyone he held dear to become a god. That person is Griffith.
slash femto, right? Wasn't that like a weird? I'm kind of oh, okay, loss of self. I saw some Subaru. I see some, what's this nigga name again? 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠. I wasn't there like some weird like Griffith femto stuff going on? I don't really know. I still am confused about, you know, Griffith and femto and what the fuck is going on with all that. But did Guts crash though? Yeah, the next couple arcs he was on like a prolonged crash, and I would say like a justified prolonged crash. Yeah, I don't think it gets much higher than this, bro. You know what I mean? Take Yuji's, you know, like blame. I mean, both of these characters have been through the ringer, right? But combine both of the arcs that caused them to crash, and then triple that and give it to somebody, and you got Guts. You know what I mean? Take the blame Yuji has for hurting others, you know, take the loss of someone close to you, Casca, or in Gon's case, Kite, mush them together, and like I said, make it way worse and way more physically painful probably. And then you got Guts' crash. I can't imagine there's going to be a crash that I put higher than Guts. At the very least, maybe we'll find something equal, but I can't see higher.
Now, there are also times when characters crash out slightly later in their journey. It might actually start with someone losing someone precious to them, kind of like before, but it continues because they became a completely different person.
Okay, 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠, I still think with now that Chainsaw Man is all said and done, there was a point in time where I would have said Chainsaw Man was the peak of Fujimoto's writing. Now that it's all said and done, I think I'm taking Fire Punch over CSM. Maybe. I'll say this. Goodbye Eri is peak Fujimoto, okay? In my personal opinion, Fujimoto is in his bag when he's doing short stories. He should direct films or some shit. Yeah. So Goodbye Eri, which is a one-shot that he did, that is the peak of Fujimoto's bag for me. Then I put Chainsaw Man Part 1. Then I put what's on your screen right now, Fire Punch. Then I put Chainsaw Man Part 2. I will say about Fire Punch, the thing that makes, Fujimoto made Look Back too, which I like Look Back, but I don't, for me, it's all right. The thing that that grabbed me the most, right? That enthralls me the most about Fire Punch is the core concept. I'm sure bro is going to go into it, right? But basically this dude's power, right? He actually doesn't have a fire power like that. He has a regeneration power. However, if I'm remembering this correctly, at some point he gets set on fire. And because he has this busted ass regeneration ability, he's constantly regenerating under the fire, giving the fire like, you know, more fuel to burn, right? Since he still has skin, he still has bodily fluids and oils and shit that the fire can burn through. This shit is dark, bro. This shit is dark.
For example, in Fire Punch, there's a boy called 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠, and this is him at the beginning of his story, while this is him very slightly later. So what the heck happened? Let me set the scene for you. The world is cooked. Humanity is trapped in an eternal ice age. People are out here barely hanging on by a thread, and resources are basically non-existent. Within this already kind of messed up world, certain individuals are born with supernatural abilities called blessings. 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠's blessing is regeneration, meaning that his body just keeps fixing itself no matter what you do to it.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's probably going to talk about it, but him and his sister were like eating him, bruh. You know, since he had infinite flesh and limited resources, you got to get it where you can.
And look, when you hear that, you're probably thinking, okay, he's basically kind of invincible or immortal or whatever. But no. See, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 looked at that ability and decided he was going to let the village use him as a human buffet.
Yeah. Fujimoto loves his cannibalism themes, and I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna sound crazy. Don't take this out of context, like don't put no clips on this, whatever. But I've always found people eating people to be such an interesting theme in media. I don't know why. I think Tokyo Ghoul like unlocked that in me. But I've always found it to be a very interesting theme when you look at like its its, I don't know, its implications, I guess.
Single day. And here's the important part. The only thing keeping this man sane.
No. Like, I'm not finna eat people. All right, like let me put it like this, right? Let me put it like this. I shouldn't even reveal this. You know, I gotta keep it on the slide. Now it sounds crazy because I said I shouldn't reveal this. So now I gotta reveal it. But I've been you know, making my way through the one shot. I've been working on the one shot. You know, the so-called one shot, and it does utilize this theme of, well, it's technically not cannibalism how I wrote it, but anywho, someone is eating someone, kinda. Lift up the floorboards. That boy think this is the Edgar Allan Poe shit, bro. Open my bro. Chill on me, bro. Already, it's not people eating. It's weird, bro. Okay, it's weird. I don't want to show too much of my hand. Okay, so let's just get back to Fire Punch.
All of that is his little sister, Luna. She is.
Fujimoto also has a thing for little sisters. Here's what I'm gonna say about little sister themes. Anyone like, and you know, Fujimoto, he don't get too weird with it. Okay, but I feel like any creator, any mangaka, any creator who really be like doing this little sister theme, they probably don't have an IRL little sister, bruh. Because them niggas be annoying as fuck. Is that also in my one? See how niggas try to play with me? Hell no. Anyone who has a real little sister would not be like glorifying that shit, bruh. Those niggas be annoying, bruh. Golly, you good, you know? All right, just... Yo, who are you growling at, bruh? I was just checking on you. Anywho, let's keep it pushing.
The one thing that made him feel like life is still worth it. At the beginning of the story, everything is going, you know, relatively okay, given these, you know, pretty insane circumstances, until this man called 𝙏𝙖𝙡 shows up to the village, takes one look around, and figures out that people are out here eating each other just to survive. So of course, his reaction is to understand the situation, let them explain themselves, and ask questions to figure what's going on. No, I'm actually kidding. He is also...
I was about to say, I don't remember that.
So he proceeds to just burn the entire thing to the ground. But here's the thing. See, 𝙏𝙖𝙡's flames are not regular flames. These things cannot be extinguished. Ever. They keep burning until the thing they are burning is gone. Do you see the problem here? 𝙏𝙡's regeneration kicks in immediately, which means that this man just keeps burning in an endless loop with no way out. And the manga goes very far to make you understand exactly how he's feeling.
I forgot how long he was burning.
In the middle of the most
that nigga stayed burning,
pain
bro.
a human being could ever experience, 𝙏𝙡 is out here praying for his sister, hoping that she's okay. But then he actually sees her right in front of him.
Oh yeah, I believe the sister had like limited regeneration. If I remember correctly, the sister could regenerate, but like on the sly. And it wasn't nearly enough to like for her to fire punch and shit.
Flames too. Luna has a version of 𝙏𝙡's regeneration.
Yeah.
But it's way, way weaker. Which means that she is not stuck in that endless loop like him. She survives just long enough to do one thing. To tell him he needs to live. And then perishes in front of his eyes. In that moment, 𝙏𝙡 sees every memory they could have made together, every moment they never got to have, the whole life they could have lived if none of this ever happened. Some of which is very weird if you've read the manga, but still. And what happens after all that? This man just keeps burning for years. Year 1 is just screaming in pure, unfiltered agony. He cannot move or think or do anything else for that matter. Year 3, he is still in the exact same flames, but he starts walking while the pain is still absolutely unbearable. Year 5, his body starts moving freely, but even then he can still not breathe properly. And then, after 8 years of burning, 𝙏𝙡 figures out how to actually push the flames away from his head so that he can finally think. After 8 years, this man is still feeling unbearable pain, but now he can finally breathe and curl his hand into a fist. And now, there's only one thing left. That is
It's
revenge.
Fade. He sold the hell out of that manga, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Listen, every single character.
All right. Agni shit was pretty high too. Here's what I'll say. I'm gonna put I'm gonna put Agni like upper A right under Guts. I think the element of betrayal in Guts' story puts it a little bit above, like, and then again, 8 years of pain. 8 years of pain is crazy. If I'm going pure pain, I'd low key take the Eclipse over what Agni had to go through. I know that sounds crazy, bro. But like, you know, the Eclipse did have that one fine demon. You know what I mean? The one that like, I'm just saying like, I'm not saying I want that. I'm saying if I had to, you know what I mean? I'm taking the Eclipse. I'm going to that one fine like succubus thing. You remember the one that like, and then like the chest came out and then the dude ran up to it and like he was like hallucinating. Then the chest like ate his head off or something like that. I'm just saying, have y'all never seen Berserk? Like, okay, bro. All I'm saying is that like, I'm locked in, bro. I'm just trying to think of, I can't even show it on stream. I'll get banned. All that to say, Agni went through more pain than Guts. I do believe that, or at least longer pain than Guts. However, the element of betrayal from Guts' story makes his crash like a bit more wicked to me. But like Agni, he's right there beneath him on like A to S, you know? So yeah. What's her name though? See how niggas, I'm crazy, but now niggas finna lock into Berserk just because they heard there was finna be some yiddies in it. What's wrong with niggas? I locked into Berserk because I heard it was an amazing narrative, a beautiful story. I didn't know about demon titties yet, bro. Now, granted, on page 1, they were there. Like, literally page 1, if I remember correctly. But, like, I'm just saying, if I had to be in the Eclipse, you know what I mean? And you say, like, all right, you fight the demon of wrath over there who's ripping niggas' intestines out, or the demon of lust who's, like, you know, putting niggas in hypnosis and biting their heads off and shit. I'm going this way to the demon of lust. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think that's a locked out thing to say. You dig?
In this video has had one big crash out, maybe two. But every now and then, you get a character that has, 17.
17. Damn, that nigga stay crashing.
𝙏𝙖𝙡 is an isekai. Basically what that means is that some regular dude from the real world gets randomly teleported into a fantasy world. At the start of the story, that regular dude in question is Subaru Natsuki. This man very understandably treats it like the beginning of an adventure. But by the end, he becomes one of the most tortured, most mentally destroyed characters in the history of fiction. So what the heck happened? The first thing you need to know is that Subaru gets an ability called Return by Death. Every time this man dies, he snaps back to an earlier point in time. On paper, that sounds like the most overpowered ability you could ever receive, especially—
And to be fair, it is very overpowered. Like, just in terms of pure, like, yeah, in terms of the way it operates, in terms of pure, like, logistics, that shit is broken.
In these circumstances. But the truth is, this man got scammed. Let's start with the very first thing that happens to Subaru in this world.
Thank you, bruh. Thank you. I was saying Subaru is chopped. Subaru is chopped, bro. Like, he looks cool in anime, but you got to remember, anime characters are already going to look better than real life people. They're like dolls. The fact that Subaru is like readably as an anime character, like, he's kind of fried, bro. I'm sorry.
He's wandering through the city, right? Just, you know, taking it all in, and he stumbles across this fruit and vegetable merchant. Cool. Then, out of nowhere, some random dudes try to mess with him in a shady alleyway. But before they can finish the job, this silver-haired girl called Amelia pulls up and saves him. After
Yep.
all that, he finds out her insignia got stolen. And this man with zero powers looks at her and goes, yeah, I'll help you get it back. Their whole search ends up leading them to a bar in the sketchiest part of the city. What could go wrong? Because inside that building,
All right, so I just want to get y'all prepared for what I'm about to say. It's going to sound locked out, but you're going to have to hear me out.
they run into Elsa, a deadly assassin. Subaru is completely and utterly powerless against her. Within moments, Elsa has slain everybody in the building. Emilia, Subaru, everybody. My man is literally chopped in half. And then he wakes up.
Okay, so I didn't see Elsa, but all I'm saying is that if I have to be disemboweled, right? And you give me the option between a grown man and Elsa, niggas finna start singing Let It Go the way I'm choosing Elsa, bruh. Like, all I'm saying is that, like, you know, there's a way to soften the blow. There's a way to soften the blow. And if I gotta get disemboweled, I'm picking Elsa over this nigga giving me the oppa right here. You feel me?
And he is back in the same marketplace in front of the
What's the difference? It's more like a... Okay, let me put it like this, right? And I'm not going to get too in-depth with it, right? For me, as a straight man, there really is no pleasure to be derived from any contact with other men. Now, I'm not saying I would enjoy the feeling of being disemboweled, right? But it's like you know how they say you got to put a little sugar with the poison or a little sugar with the medicine? You know what I'm saying? Like, Elsa, that's a good looking lady. You know what I mean? Shit, if I have to be disemboweled, I don't think people are hearing what I'm saying. I don't think niggas are processing the words coming out of my mouth. If I have to be disemboweled, I'm choosing Elsa over. Why did my light change color? We're going to leave it. I'm choosing Elsa over like a grown man or something. You feel me? Okay.
exact same fruit and vegetable merchant. Time reset, kind of like a video game checkpoint. So now Subaru's like, okay, I know what happens, let me just run it back and fix everything. He fights Emilia again, goes back to the bar, tries a different approach, and things spiral completely out of control again. And this man dies again, and wakes up in front of the same fruit and vegetable merchant again. Now, at this point you think, okay,
that nigga stayed hitting that pose back in the day, huh? He loved this pose right here, bro. Always sticking that one finger up bullshitting, bro. I'm glad he left this shit in season 1. He don't be doing that shit no more.
third time, he's got even more information. He knows the enemies. He should be good, right? This time, my man is killed by the random dudes from the beginning. And
I forgot about that. Yeah, he was getting some bad spins early on.
Before we go any further, I need you to understand something. Every single one of these deaths is very real. Every single time Subaru dies, he feels everything. The pain, the fear, the specific type of horror that comes with however he got slain in that particular timeline. And the example I just gave you, that is like the most tame thing in the entire series.
Very tame in comparison.
So much worse.
I mean, you know what we just saw this past week, bro, with him falling down those fucking stairs? Hell nah.
The second thing you need to know is that the memories never reset. Everyone else literally goes back to the past like all of this never even happened. But Subaru experiences everything and then...
Is this squiggled? That's added in post, right?
Is that the memories never reset. Everyone else literally goes back to the past like all of this never even...
Because this would have been cold if they actually made it like squiggly with like the text on the screen. Obviously, I'm sure they didn't, right? Because they want to give credit, but that would have been cold.
Happened. But Subaru experiences everything and then remembers everything once he's revived. Every failure, every single person he watched die in a timeline that no longer exists and that nobody else even knows happened. He is carrying all of it without anyone to talk about it.
Because if he
Because
tries
here's the
to,
part I didn't mention, he literally cannot tell anybody because
he gets
there
his
is
heart
an unseen
grabbed.
force that straight up prevents him from explaining Return by Death to anyone by choking him with an invisible hand that no one can see but him. So basically, he watches someone he cares about die, he comes back, they're alive again, they have no idea what just happened, and he has to stand there and look them in the face and act normal. And each time he crashes out, he can literally not explain.
Hold on. There's a spider.
What is going on? And on top of all that, he still has to figure everything out by himself
Betty, I
with the new
suppose.
information he has and find solutions so that this stuff doesn't happen again. There are characters who...
I'ma say for Subaru, here's what I'm gonna do. Okay. I think Gon gotta get bumped down a little bit to see. Subaru, I think I'm putting him beneath Agni in them. Simply because, yes, he be going through it. Subaru be going through it, but he always has the solace of the lack of permanence of his situation. You know what I'm saying? He crashes out every now and then. But compared, like apparently he's had 17 crash outs during the show total. I guess bro counted. However, he doesn't really crash out that often because he knows there's no permanence to his situations a lot of the time. I got 2 Agnis on here. No one was going to tell me. And so he don't really be crashing like that. He does crash every now and then, though. I mean, we're seeing how Nubaru is reacting to his situation. That is 100% crash. He just choked what's her name out. But like, yeah, compared to some of these other characters, his shit really not that deep. Especially just because he always has the solace of like, okay, we're gonna run this back. This suffering will be over after I die, and I get to redo. And nothing. None of the, it's like if Agni's sister stayed alive, or he knew like, okay, after I'm done burning, my sister will come back. You know what I mean? That lack of permanence does take away from the suffering, which I think does take away from the justifiability of the crash out. But that's how I see it. So I put Subaru up there. You know, he's up in these like A, B, A, S tiers, these SAB tiers, where it's like they're going through crazy shit. But it's nothing like, you know, in my opinion, what Guts and Agni had to face, and specifically the permanence of their situations. So yeah, that's how I'm seeing it.
Crash out because they keep trying to help the people around them over and over and over again, only to watch it fail every single time.
Land of the Lustrous.
Land of the Lustrous.
Now, this is the first series on here that I haven't seen, so I'm going to be paying extra attention. I'm trying to learn something, you dig?
In a distant future where immortal beings made of gemstones spend their existence fighting against the Lunarians. Mysterious beings who descend from the sky to capture them and take them to the moon. Phosphophyllite, which I think that's how it's pronounced, known as Phos, begins the story at the absolute bottom of the society. Physically, they are super fragile, pretty much useless in combat, and regarded by almost everyone as a liability because they basically
Damn, her ass got shattered.
don't have skills for...
I'm not gonna lie, Steven Universe low-key stole this shit's whole flow too. Or maybe the other way around. I'm assuming it's that way, but I don't know.
anything. Their hardness is 3.5 out of 10. For context, most gems who fight sit at approximately 7 or above. Despite that, Phos is genuinely optimistic and curious. They want to contribute and prove they belong, but most importantly, they want to become better. And that desire...
What is that, a pearl, a diamond?
To become better and to...
I'm not gonna lie, diamonds are probably cracked in this verse, huh? If they're going off hardness for battle strength, golly.
help is exactly what separates Phos from pretty much every other gem in this story. Every time Phos becomes stronger, they lose a piece of who they were. That's because part of their original body is replaced after injuries. For example, legs from a sea creature, arms made of gold, and eventually their entire head from another gem.
Damn.
Each replacement grants...
What the fuck? How the fuck do you do that? So how does she get a brain transplant? Shit is crazy.
New abilities, but each replacement costs a big chunk of their memories. The things that connected 𝙏 to
Okay, so memories are caught in the crossfire.
who they used to be and why any of this mattered in the first place. Their personality shifts alongside the memories, and the cheerful, curious gem from the beginning slowly disappears in this pursuit.
Arms of gold, though. Gold isn't that strong. Gold is very, like, meltable and pliable. What would make them choose arms of gold?
Of change and becoming better. But above all that, 𝙏 is also the only gem who wants to know more. The other gems are content. They fight the Lunarians, maintain the school, and exist within the structure they have always known without really questioning it. 𝙏 cannot do that. Everything pushes them towards this need for answers that nobody around really shares. Why are the Lunarians taking them? What do they actually want? Who is their master really? And what is he not telling them? Very valid questions. 𝙏 begins pursuing truths that the other gems have no interest in. And in that pursuit, every answer they find creates more...
What the fuck is that? Holy. I'm not gonna lie, I might have to tap into this, at least manga-wise, because these designs are wicked.
Distance between themselves and the community they're trying to protect. Every revelation makes the world more complicated and more painful. The other gems begin pulling away, and the ones that stay are the ones that are interested in their own selfish desires, not because they want to actually stay with 𝙏. Cinnabar, the person the whole journey was supposed to be for, remains on Earth while 𝙏 travels to the moon, chasing answers that nobody asked for and nobody really understands. By the time 𝙏 has spent centuries losing pieces of themselves, the people they loved, the memories that connected them to why any of this mattered, and the trust of the community they sacrificed everything to protect, the person who started this journey is almost entirely gone.
Yeah, because if she's replacing parts, it's like that old philosophical question, right? If you have a ship made out of wooden planks, okay, you replace one plank, you still consider that the same ship. You replace 2, 3, 4 planks, you still consider that the same ship. Is that what it's called? The ship of Theseus? At what point does that ship become a new ship? How many ships have to be replaced for you to say, okay, that's not the ship that, you know, we were originally working with? And so, you know, it's asking that same question, but with a body, which I think is interesting.
And the weight of all of it is carried entirely alone.
Even though it's asking that, from what I understand, with both a body and memories, which I think makes it more interesting. Because a lot of people would agree that, you know, if you popped my head open like Kenjaku and took my brain out and put it in your body and, you know, closed it back, and, you know, I was acting the same in your body as I would in my body, a lot of people would consider that body that I'm operating to be me. However, you know what I mean? When memories are lost in the crossfire as well, I think it becomes a more interesting question.
𝙏 did it willingly, to feel like they belonged, but also to help people that never truly helped them back. And when those same people didn't just ignore 𝙏, but turned their back against them.
This shit looked tough as hell, so she became like a monster.
That is when they finally crashed out.
Okay, we didn't really hear much about the crash out itself, so I can't speak on it. I don't know enough about 𝙏, or her supposed crash out to really put her anywhere on this list. And so I just threw her at the bottom. Her story didn't really seem like it was much of a crash to me, at least until the end. And again, this video didn't dig too much into that given crash. So, you know, yeah.
And then there are also characters who crash out when the society they live in doesn't accept them. Like, for example, if they, you know, decided to throw someone off a mountain.
Okay, yeah, my boy Rudo. Rudo might be just like the biggest crasher on this list, just in terms of like the consistency of the crash, bro. Dog spent the whole beginning of that season on constant and consistent crash mode, just constantly on some bullshit. This nigga is a crasher, and it's not just an example of a moment of crash. It is just constant crash. Nigga, the OP is literally called Let's Just Crash. Like Rudo might be up there, not necessarily because of what he went through, which was bad, but because of, if we're doing a crash out, like the justified crash out tier list, the level of crash he was on might put him up there.
No reason, which would, be completely stupid and would definitely never happen.
Loss of
𝙏𝙖𝙡
system.
is a story set on the sphere, a floating island divided into two groups. At the top, the citizens who
𝙏𝙖𝙡 is so interesting to me, and I don't know, have we answered this as spoiler free as possible if you're into the 𝙏𝙖𝙡 manga? Have we even been back to the surface yet? I feel like 𝙏𝙖𝙡 set up so much with having both the surface and the pit. You're almost building a world on top of your world. And from what I've seen in the anime so far, we've barely even breached, you know what I mean? The pit, it's like, okay, we have the pit, which is like, there's the surface and the pit is the worst place to be. Then we have the surface, which has, the nice city, the white pearly city that we're looking at now, and then the dingy other side. You know what I mean? Like, most anime would have picked one of those two concepts. Either a city divided by a wall, or, your upper land and your lower land pit. But, for whatever reason, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 decided to stack these. We have the city, we have the city under the other city, the pit, the world under the other world, where there's that, segregation and discrimination. And then even on the upper world, we have discrimination amongst those two groups, which I do think is a good, hopefully, potentially intentional bit of commentary on, like, just a broader commentary, like looking at things like class consciousness and whatnot, that like, even after you make it past a certain class, there's still like infighting, and there's still, there's always a group, end group smaller than the one that you're in. But one of the things that made me like hesitant to get into 𝙏𝙖𝙡, and one of the things I still haven't seen fully addressed in 𝙏𝙖𝙡 yet, was that idea of like, okay, you know what I mean? How do we address, we've set up basically two worlds here, and both of these worlds have glaring issues that are very similar. How do we address both of these worlds' issues separately and still have like a satisfying and a satisfying and concise story?
live comfortably in the beautiful part of the city. At the bottom, the people whose ancestors were criminals. They live in the slums on the edge of the sphere, and Rudo is one of them. Rudo is outspoken and stubborn. He challenges the world he lives in, but underneath that, he is not motivated by hatred or jealousy or any kind of malicious thing. All he wants is to collect what people waste and repair it, because he understands that value exists in things the world has decided to throw away. All of it deserves to be cared for. And that belief comes almost entirely from 𝙏𝙗. 𝙏𝙗 is the man who
𝙏𝙗. Yeah. Something we don't know about 𝙏𝙗 though, I'm not gonna lie. I got my eyes on 𝙏𝙗, bro. Like, I know he's gone. Allegedly, I bet you he might have come back or is gonna come back. But there's something we don't know about him, bro. Why did he have those gloves? What's going on? Why did he have not a vital instrument? What were these, Watchmen series or whatever? Why he have these on deck like that? Why he give him the Rudo like that? Basically gave this nigga one for all without even telling him he was giving him the super weapon.
Is Rudo and treated him with care all these years. As long as 𝙏𝙗 is there, Rudo has something worth protecting and something worth living for. Until one day, without warning, Rudo returns to his home, the one place in the world that felt safe, and finds it
like, I feel like what's going to end up happening is that we find out 𝙏𝙗 was low-key on some bull or like some anti-hero shit that was like threatening the sphere or maybe like threatening the pit. And this dude, this main villain that's been gassed up, is going to be like, again, another anti-hero where it's like he had to kill this dude 𝙏𝙗. You know what I mean? And 𝙏𝙗 probably had the vital instrument, the Watchmen gloves. And, you know, that was probably his weapon at first. But obviously bro jumped him without the weapon, and yeah.
And the person who gave him everything, Recto, with a sword in his chest. Before Rudo can even begin to process what he is looking at, the authorities arrive and accuse him of this. There is no investigation, no trial, not even anyone asking whether the honest conclusion might be wrong. Not because the evidence points to Rudo, but because Rudo is Rudo. He is from the slums. He cannot defend himself, and even his one friend who seemed to care about him regardless of their class difference betrays him.
I am interested in how this reunite, if these two reunite and, you know, Rudo is cleared of his crime or whatever. I'm interested to see how this is going to play out when he meets her again.
In front of everyone, he is condemned and sentenced to be thrown into the abyss, the place beneath the sphere where society disposes of everything it considers waste. Garbage, broken things, and criminals. Standing at the edge, Rudo finally understands with complete clarity how the world above sees him. In that moment,
has to be at least one punch. I don't know. I feel like, well, I don't know where they're going to go with his character long term, but I feel like the direction they're hinting at is that, like, you know what I mean? He's obviously on his crash arc now. He beating the shit out of everybody, biting fingers off, you know, just wilding. But I feel like by the time he's up on the surface and he meets her again, he'll probably be a more level-headed sort of person. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he won't be driven by rage as much at that point.
Every lesson Recto spent years teaching him is gone. The world has killed the person who taught them and used this as the excuse to throw Rudo away as well. As he falls into the abyss, Rudo loses faith in the world above entirely and screams that he will be back to take revenge.
We still don't know what any of that shit is, do we?
There are also times when...
All right, Rudo. I think Rudo went through significantly less than a lot of these other characters. I mean, he for shitly went through significantly less than a lot of these other characters. But I think he's the biggest crash on the list, maybe besides Gon. I'm going to put him like right next to Subaru. I think his crash was a bit more justified than Gon's. But I can't see it breaking, I can't see it like breaking into that, you know, fire burning on my skin for 8 years straight or Eclipse. I can't see it being there. That's just me though. That's just me.
A character crashes out because the society they lived in their entire life
About to get some Eren.
Is a lie.
Okay, yeah.
You're a good person. I hope you'll get to live a long life.
Okay,
Loss of a system,
if you've seen
Eren.
Attack on Titan, you know that what Eren tried to do was insane. I hope we can agree on that. And if you haven't, he basically tried to destroy like 90% of the people on Earth. So I still hope we can agree this is insane.
Well over.
Let's actually figure out
was
what
he was
made him
aiming
lose
for,
his
right?
mind in the first place. Attack on Titan is set in a world where
Because
humanity
he just wanted to leave his people. So that would have been like a fraction of a percent.
lives enclosed by massive walls. Outside those walls are Titans, these enormous humanoid creatures with no purpose beyond eating people. Nobody inside the walls knows where the Titans came from, why they exist, or whether there is anything beyond them. For generations, this small fortress has been their entire world. Eren Yeager grows up inside that world, until one day, the Colossal Titan, a creature so large it topples over the walls and breaches their town. In minutes, streets are destroyed, people are devoured. Eren's
so which
mother
crash
is
are they going to
trapped
go
beneath-
into though? Because Eren definitely crashed in episode 1 with like, you know, his Attack Titan shit. Or maybe that was episode 2 or 3, whatever. But, you know, obviously the big crash with Eren was the rumbling, right? So
the rubble of their home.
Are we just
Unable to
getting the
move,
whole story?
A Titan eats her while Eren watches from a distance, completely powerless. his hatred is first born right there. And for years, his goal is to become someone capable of fighting Titans back. During his journey as a soldier, he finds himself in dozens of life or death situations and sees many of his comrades perish. Two of his comrades are 𝙏𝙖𝙡 and 𝙏𝙖𝙡, who he trained beside for years and by every reasonable definition, his friends. But the truth is, they were also the Colossal Titan and the Armored Titan, the beings responsible
is
for
this
the
the crash he's
destruction of the
talking
wall.
about?
The enemy is not a
finding out about the
stupid
traitor
creature like everyone suspected. It's a person, someone Eren trusted and who sat beside him while carrying the knowledge of what they had done to his home and to his family. Eren starts to put the pieces of the puzzle together and realizes he has no idea what's actually going on. He goes into his father's basement and finds his hidden journals. And they
we're getting the whole story, I think.
Finally reveal the truth about the world. There is a civilization beyond the walls, an enormous, thriving world that has existed this entire time, completely unknown to the people inside. And that world views Eren's people not with indifference, but with hatred. The citizens of the wall are called Eldians, descendants of a people that once used Titan's power to conquer and devastate the world. To the outside world, they are the monsters. Eren finds out that the Titans that destroyed his life were not mindless beasts, but Eldians that were turned into weapons and deliberately unknown to the people inside,
cool.
that once used Titan's power to conquer and devastate the world. To the outside world, they are the monsters. Eren finds out that the Titans that destroyed his life were not mindless beasts, but Eldians that were turned into weapons and deliberately deployed against their own people as part of a century-long cycle of hatred that predates his birth by generations.
Yeah.
The walls were not built to protect humanity, but to contain them forever. The fight Eren has been fighting his entire life was never simply against the Titans. And now, he crashes out and decides he will take revenge for all of it.
I don't really think that was too accurate of a take on Eren's story and the reason that he crashed out. However, he did crash out for sure. And he crashed out pretty damn hard. Eren's crash out, however, I think is low on the justified tier. I think, it could be higher, but the taking out all of humanity aspect of it, I'm not sure if I'd say that's very justified. That's a bit overkill, a bit immature. I think I'm gonna put him next to Gon because his crash out has the same sort of immaturity and childishness that I think riddled the decision that Gon made. In fact, those two decisions in their respective character arcs do seem very similar. And with Eren, you got all the weird time travel and memories sending and all that, weird narrative shit that they did that made it interesting and foreshadowing and blah, 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 which obviously we got to take all that into account. But at the end of the day, wiping out damn near all of humanity because you felt like it, you know what I mean? Because you had the urge to. Because if I remember correctly, at a certain point, he wasn't even trying to take revenge, right? He was just doing it because that's what he wanted to do. He had this, intrinsic urge to do so. Yeah, that crash was kind of wicked, Brian. I wouldn't really call that justified.
Unlike Eren, there are times when a character knows the world they live in is real. And yet, this world takes everything away from them.
So we believe that human beings simply cannot understand
Pain.
each other.
Nagato.
Naruto is a series set in a world of ninja villages, countries that train soldiers from the moment they're small and deploy them in conflicts that range from minor disputes to full-scale wars. The great nations each have their own village and are largely indifferent to the smaller nations caught in the middle of their conflicts. The Hidden Rain village is one of those smaller nations, and that is exactly where Nagato grows up. He is gentle, shy, deeply compassionate, and holding on to the belief that people
damn, who greedy ass just took 3 crackers? I know you saw that.
And that is exactly where Nagato
them light ass rations. All right, 1 cracker.
Shy, deeply compassionate.
Damn. Someone grabbed 3. Someone grabbed 2. Who's 3 crackers to the gut? Come on, bruh.
Holding on to the belief that people can still understand one another despite all this suffering. One day, he finds Yahiko and Conan, 2 other kids surviving in the Rain Village. In turn, they meet Jiraiya, a legendary ninja who doesn't just teach them how to fight, but also plants the idea that the cycle of hatred consuming their world is not permanent. That people who have seen what war actually costs might be the ones actually capable.
I did forget Jiraiya. Yo, anime senseis got to be more explicit with what they're saying, bro. Because this reminds me of like some ghetto shit. Low-key ghetto should have been on this list or in this video. He would have been a good addition. But this reminds me of like, well, I guess we already had Yuji in here, right, for JJK. But this reminds me of like the shit that Yuki said to Ghetto and him just entirely misinterpreting it and becoming a villain. Like, maybe these anime sensei should be a bit more explicit about like, yeah, but let's not go killing everybody and destroying shit. You know what I mean? These cycles have to end, but let's be reasonable here.
Of changing it. 3 of them eventually create the Akatsuki. Their goal is to end the suffering inflicted upon smaller nations by the great powers, and to finally break the cycle. Yahiko is the heart of this group. He is everything Nagato is not. Charismatic, confident, and optimistic. He is the reason the dream feels so real. Until one day, this all changes. Hanzo, the leader of the Rain Village, and Danzo, a shadowy leader from the Hidden Leaf Village, decide the Akatsuki movement has grown too influential to be allowed to continue. Together, they set a trap. The 3 friends are cornered with no way out, and Nagato is forced to make a choice. Yahiko's life or Conan's life? Yahiko does not wait for someone else to make this decision. He takes the kunai from Nagato's hand and drives it into himself. He perishes in his best friend's arms, making sure the last thing he does is remove the impossible choice from everyone else. Everything Nagato had been taught collapses. Not just the dream, but the idea that peace is achievable. The idea that good intentions matter. The idea that people are capable of recognizing something worth protecting. A part of him breaks. The boy, who once believed people could understand one another, looks at what the world just did to the person who believed in all of this more than anyone else, and realizes that every attempt to create peace through kindness has ended in failure. Every lesson about
and so he decides to do it through pain.
Compassion
the
has been
world
met
shall
with
know pain.
Humanity is incapable of learning without pain.
One feels the same pain.
Now look, I'm not gonna lie. He had the right idea. He had the right idea. Humanity can't learn without pain. However, bringing about that pain just leads to more hatred. But we're not judging his philosophy. We're judging the justifiedness, the justifiability of his crash out. I think I'd put him in lower A. I think I'd put him in lower A just because philosophy-wise, he missed that big-ass gap of like, yes, the world needs pain, but bringing about that pain as an individual is going to lead to more hatred, which continues the cycle. You know what I mean? What made you think destroying a village would lead to peace in the end? Would lead to people going, oh, man, this cycle of violence of these major villages, yeah, man. Now, let's just squash the beef. You know, if anything, that's just going to put all the beef onto you. You know, there's a new enemy now. Probably put a bigger target on the back of the smaller villages. And so I think there are lots of holes in Payne's decisions, his philosophy even. But his crash out, I think, was pretty damn justified. Yeah, for sure.
Losing something dear. You and I have both
and we got
experienced that pain.
We
You
got the
strive
quotes
for your justice,
into the video.
and I strive for mine.
That's tough. That's clean. To be continued. Okay, so it looks like we're getting more. That was cool. I rock with that heavy.